In the peaceful outskirts of Japan, a quiet surprise is being prepared. A small restaurant opens before the morning light completely fades and closes long after the streets have become quiet again. It belongs to Rika and her husband, Ichikawa, two people who once promised each other that they would build something meaningful together, no matter how modest it might seem to others. From the outside, the restaurant looks simple, almost easy to overlook, but inside, it holds years of effort, patience, and shared dreams. Every day follows a familiar pattern. They work side by side with few words, not because there is distance between them, but because the routine has become second nature. Customers come steadily, not in crowds, but enough to keep the doors open and the dream alive. Each meal served feels like a small promise kept. Yet the work demands more than just time. It consumes attention, energy, and emotional space. Even on days when business is slow, there is always something to do, something to improve, something to worry about. Bills must be paid, ingredients must be fresh, and expectations must be met. The restaurant is not just their livelihood, it is the center of their daily lives. Over time, Ichikawa begins to notice subtle changes. Rika still smiles at customers, but the smile fades more quickly than it used to. Her shoulders seem heavier by the end of the day. Her silence is longer during late dinners at home. There is no complaint, no dramatic moment that signals something is wrong. Instead, it is a quiet accumulation of tiredness, the kind that builds slowly when rest is always postponed for later. Ichikawa reflects on this during the brief moments when the restaurant is quiet. He remembers why they started this journey, how they once talked about balance, about working hard, but also living well. Somewhere along the way, that balance slipped away, replaced by constant responsibility. He realizes that dedication, while admirable, can become a burden when it leaves no room for recovery. This realization does not come with guilt or blame. Rather, it comes with concern and care. Ichikawa understands that rest is not a reward reserved for success. It is a necessity that allows success to continue. Without rest, even the strongest commitment can wear thin. He knows this not only as a husband, but as someone who wants their shared dream to last. The idea of doing something different begins quietly. Nothing extravagant, nothing that would disrupt their lives in a risky way. Just a pause. A chance to step away from the familiar walls of the restaurant and see each other without the constant pressure of responsibility. He wants Rika to breathe again, to feel that her efforts are seen and valued. Convincing her, however, will not be easy. Rika is practical, careful, and deeply aware of their financial limits. She measures decisions thoughtfully, always considering the long-term impact. Ichikawa respects this about her, which is why he approaches the idea gently, framing it not as an escape, but as care. A few days, he suggests, the restaurant can wait. Their well-being should not. Ichikawa is not trying to fix a problem with money or grand gestures. He is responding to something quieter and more human, the need to rest, to reconnect, and to remember that life is more than constant effort. It is a reminder that taking care of oneself is not a sign of weakness, but a foundation for strength. The decision, once formed, begins to shape itself into action. Ichikawa chooses his words carefully in the days that follow, waiting for the right moment to bring the idea to life. Instead of presenting it as a surprise, he introduces it gently, almost casually, during a quiet evening after the restaurant is closed. He suggests that they take a short break. He explains that the restaurant has been running steadily, that their regular customers will understand, and that a brief pause might even help them return with renewed energy. Rika agrees, though not without hesitation. Ichikawa presents the trip as a modest weekend of camping, something close to nature, quiet, and inexpensive. This framing eases Rika's concerns, allowing her to step into the idea without feeling guilty or anxious. The journey itself is calm. They travel together, passing familiar streets that gradually give way to open roads and softer landscapes. Rika assumes they are heading toward a simple campsite, perhaps somewhere quiet and practical. Ichikawa remains relaxed, focused on the road, offering only light conversation. There is no urgency, no schedule pressing them forward, and this alone begins to feel unusual in a comforting way. When they finally arrive, the scene before them shifts Rika's expectations completely. Instead of tents and simple facilities, she sees a well-kept resort surrounded by natural beauty. The atmosphere is peaceful, refined, and clearly designed for rest. For a moment, she is silent, absorbing the contrast between what she expected and what stands before her. Her initial reaction is amazement, quickly followed by concern. The place is beautiful, but it feels expensive, far removed from the modest plan she had agreed to. Questions rise immediately in her mind, not out of ingratitude, but out of responsibility. She worries about the cost, about whether this choice aligns with the careful balance they have always tried to maintain. The comfort of the environment clashes with her sense of financial discipline. Rika turns to Ichikawa, her voice gentle but firm, expressing her discomfort. She suggests that they leave, that perhaps there has been a misunderstanding. Ichikawa listens without interrupting. He does not dismiss her concerns or try to persuade her with promises. Instead, he reassures her calmly, explaining that everything has been considered, that this time away is intentional and meaningful. What matters most in this moment is not whether they stay or leave, but how the conversation unfolds. There is no tension, no raised voices, only honesty and care. Ichikawa emphasizes that the purpose of this trip is not luxury, but rest. He wants her to feel supported, not pressured. Slowly, Rika allows herself to pause, to consider the possibility that rest itself might be worth accepting. She agrees to stay, though her feelings remain mixed. There is gratitude, uncertainty, and a quiet curiosity about what this time away might offer. Rika realizes that stepping away from work is not just a physical change of location, but an emotional adjustment as well. Learning to rest, she begins to understand, can be just as challenging as learning to work hard. The days at the resort unfold at a pace that feels unfamiliar to both of them. There is no alarm clock, no urgent checklist waiting to be completed before sunrise. For Rika, this stillness is unsettling at first. Her body rests, but her thoughts remain active, reaching instinctively for responsibilities that are no longer there. Ichikawa notices this and does not push. He understands that rest is not simply the absence of work, but a gradual process of letting go. They begin their days slowly, sharing breakfast without watching the clock, allowing conversations to wander without purpose. These small moments, once taken for granted, now feel rare and meaningful. Without the pressure of the restaurant, they rediscover a gentler way of being together. As they explore the resort, they encounter other travelers, each carrying their own quiet stories. There are couples, families, and individuals who greet one another with warmth, exchanging simple words and shared smiles. These interactions are unforced and light, free from expectation. Over shared meals and casual conversations, Rika begins to feel a sense of ease that she had not realized was missing. Still, beneath the calm, a subtle tension remains. She questions whether enjoying herself is appropriate when there are responsibilities waiting back home. These thoughts surface quietly, not as panic, but as a gentle unease that shadows her moments of relaxation. One evening, as they sat together at the resort's dining table, he speaks openly, not to correct her thinking, but to share his perspective. He explains that he did not choose this place to impress or indulge, but to protect something important. He saw how tired she had become, how their shared life had narrowed to endless effort without recovery. For him, this time away is an investment, not an expense. This conversation shifts something within Rika. She realizes that her discomfort is not about the resort itself, but about a deeply rooted belief that rest must always be justified. Hearing Ichikawa frame rest as care, rather than indulgence, allows her to see the situation differently. It becomes clear that taking time to recover does not erase responsibility. It strengthens the ability to carry it. Gradually, Rika begins to relax more fully. She allows herself to enjoy the warmth of the environment, the calm rhythm of the days, and the simple pleasure of being present. The resort becomes more than a setting. It becomes a space where reflection feels safe. Rika no longer feels the urge to pull away from the experience. Instead, there is a growing sense of alignment between intention and feeling. In this space of calm, their relationship feels lighter. When the final morning arrives, the resort feels familiar now, almost like a temporary home rather than a place of uncertainty. Rika notices a change in herself. The tension she carried when they first arrived is no longer present. In its place is a sense of calm that feels steady, not fragile, as if it might last beyond this brief escape. Ichikawa finally opens up, explaining that the trip was never meant to impress, but to respond to something he had quietly noticed over time. He tells Rika he saw how much she gave each day. This journey, he says, was his way of protecting what truly mattered: their health, their connection, and the future they were building together. Rika listened calmly and recognized herself in his words. Grateful for being seen and understood, she accepted the deeper meaning of the trip, not in escape, but in permission to stop, breathe, and receive care. They returned with clarity, understanding that balance and rest were essential to sustaining their life together. This story gently reminds us that caring for others must be balanced with caring for ourselves. Rest is not failure, but wisdom that restores clarity and deepens connection. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to like, subscribe, and share. Let it remind you to rest, reflect, and care for what truly matters.